What's happening? This is a perfect build. It truly is Toxic Rain 2.0. It's actually much better than Toxic Rain is in Path of Exile 1 right now. This might be hard to hear, but it's stronger than Lightning Spear Amazon was last league too, and it's like 1/10 the price. So we've made upgrades to the clear speed, the move speed, the single target damage, the tankiness, and the mana sustain. Basically everything is better. And the build really is the perfect picture of quality of life now. Not only are you completely immune to chilled ground and temp chains, you can run all map mods without even looking. You are a sprinting tank. You're basically a Metal Gear. The only thing that can kill you is that one horrible Abyss mod that totally disables all regen. It killed me one time so far in mapping, which I feel like is pretty good considering I think this character's in the mid-90s, 94, feels pretty good. This build was also super easy to level, and now that we're online in endgame, it's annihilating everything. I want you, the viewer, to appreciate the fact that I went and did some bosses that I don't really love doing, just to get some footage of that, and you can see them just like melting into vaporized goo here. So this is a one-button playstyle in maps. It clears packs off screen, it clears around corners, it's just the best parts of Lightning Spear or Lightning Arrow, but bosses also fall over before they even realize they've been hit. Despite how fast, smooth, and tanky it is, it's also relatively cheap for a build that is this strong. This is not a 5,000 Divine Fub gun. No disrespect to the god, but we're torturing max level bosses and simulacrums and stuff for less than the cost of a headhunter. You could absolutely add a headhunter to this build. It will become faster. Maybe we'll do that. I don't know. But also, I've saved the best part of this sales pitch for last here. It's really easy on your graphics card. This build does not have a bunch of cool flashing lightning bolts or fireballs that annihilate your frame rate. You know, they blast your GPU as hard as they blast the monsters. It's really simple and understated visually. There's visual clarity, and like I said in the beginning, it's kind of a perfect build. So let's get into it, but first be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and join our Discord as well. We're over 1,300 members and still growing strong. So our last video was really more about leveling the build and kind of the early phases of getting online in maps, and definitely you should check that out if you want more detail, but I will just kind of give the very brief positive of leveling this build, which is all of the skills that you need, all of them, you get in Act 1. Poison Burst Arrow, your main clear skill, Toxic Growth, and Plague Barrier, your kind of main single target blasting. Those both come online, come available in Act 1, unless you're really zooming, then it's maybe early Act 2. And Vine Arrow you also get about midway through Act 1. So everything you need, you're going to have from the start of the lifespan of the character. You know, first hour or two of the character, you're going to be basically pretty close to what you're going to be experiencing in terms of like setting up your keybinds and getting comfortable with how you play it, all the way through until you're level 99 and destroying everything that lives and moves. And now let's talk a little bit about what we've done different with skills, and I think I'll jump into the PoB here. So I've set up 2 Poison Burst Arrow setups in PoB. These obviously you can't run 2 Poison Burst Arrow setups in-game, and that's fine. We're using Deadly Poison and Heft on both of these. We're using that on pretty much every setup because we're a poison-based build. Max Fizz damage is good. More poison damage is obviously good. For clear, what we're doing is multi-shot Fork and Bursting Plague, and that's because we've dropped the Sliver Tongue. We're just using like a standard physical damage bow, and this helps us have massive amounts of clear in mapping. You know, multi-shot gives you that 3-target cleave, or three arrows at once, I should say. And this means you're not having to spend currency, although you can, but you're not having to spend currency on getting the very fancy rune that I forget the name of that's incredibly expensive. This one, Countess Seska's Rune of Archery. This is like 11 divines, pretty expensive. You know, it's +1 arrow, so good if you can afford it. But then also, you know, things like +1 arrow bows or Gemini bows or anything like that, those are going to be more expensive, and multi-shot kind of fixes the issue, right? The less skill speed that you get out of multi-shot doesn't really matter because poison is just based off the damage of the hit. DPS isn't really the important metric for a poison build. It really is damage per hit. Attack speed kind of doesn't matter. So a big part of why Poison Burst works in clearing is that, like, when it hits enemies, it splashes. Let me shoot a wall. You can see all those circles, you know, they splash, and each of those applies a poison, guaranteed 100% chance. And so by having 3 arrows exploding, you're having 3 circles overlapping. Basically, you're getting triple the amount of poisons on enemies. This means, when you shoot an arrow into a pack of enemies, you could very easily hit that 6 poison cap that we're getting out of Poison Burst Arrow, like very, very, very easily. And the 25% less damage that comes from multi-shot is like, it's not great, but ultimately it's just getting completely overpowered by the 2 extra projectiles. You're effectively tripling your damage and then cutting it down to only 75%. The less skill speed makes you move a little bit slower when you shoot. That really is the only downside to this at all. If you're able to get more projectiles in other ways, obviously do that and cut this and, throw in something like, rapid attacks, you'll move a little faster and shoot a little faster, but it will be a lot more expensive. So this is a much, very, very effective budget option, and something that you can kind of upgrade out of later on once you feel like spending 100 divines on a bow or whatever. Ultimately, getting 3 hits and then also having all of those fork is really valuable. Bursting Plague is also just amazing for clear. This is something that we've been using on Plague Bearer since the campaign, and really you want to use on Poison Burst Arrow as well. It just makes it so the poison makes everything pop, pretty much just for 20% of their max life. So you just get insane clear, no RNG clear either, right? If you poison an enemy, they pop. Assuming it's with Poison Burst Arrow or Plague Bearer, but it almost always is. Now, obviously, those 3 last support gems are totally worthless for any sort of AoE situation, so we have Deliberation for more damage, Overextend, and Rapid Attacks, all for just kind of whatever quality of life, I guess. A little bit more damage in single target. For the most part, in any bossing setup, you're not really going to be using Poison Burst Arrow very much. But as you can see, it does come out a lot faster, actually, and it will do some good damage to kind of get your combo started. So the way that you play the build in standard mapping setup, you have the multi-shot and fork and Bursting Plague. You're running around in AoE, you're just mapping, just running around right-clicking, everything's dying, that's it. For bossing, you have to build up Plague Bearer, basically, so you can potentially just walk into the room with 100% Plague Bearer. Maybe you have to shoot him with Poison Burst Arrow a few times to get that built up. And then all you really want to do is you want to get Despair on them and have a Vine Arrow down. And then you just combo between Toxic Growth, Plague Bearer, Toxic Growth, Plague Bearer. And you just do that over and over again until the boss is dead. If anything goes awry, the boss dodges out of the way, and you don't get your Plague Bearer to hit the Toxic Growth and pop all the pods on the boss. That's where you can then hit him with some Poison Burst Arrows to rebuild that Plague Bearer. That's kind of it. And that's mostly what Barrage is for. It's just to if I can hit the right button here, there we go. Mostly just to let yourself get a triple hit of Poison Burst Arrow if you need to. Barraging Toxic Growth is totally worthless. It's actually a DPS loss. For Toxic Growth, we haven't made huge changes, because the point of this is to hit them with a bunch of pustules, have it do a bunch of damage. Concentrated area is still good, obviously. It really helps with just making everything be tightly stacked on a boss. Long Fuse and Aracali's Lust are all good for damage. Deadly Poison's great for damage, but then we switched over to Escalating Poison instead of Heft. I've found that to be much more valuable in terms of nuking bosses, specifically in-game bosses. I did notice a difference between 6 and 8 poisons. Wound up being a lot stronger to have Escalating Poison in there. Plague Bearer is still mostly the same. One thing I do want to point out here, though, is Chaos Mastery will take a level 19 Plague Bearer up to level 20. The difference between a 20 and a 21 in terms of the poison cap is very small. So this is a great way to not waste currency like I did. Don't bother upgrading your Plague Bearer to 21 or 20. Just take it a 19 Chaos Mastery or Physical Mastery. It's either of those will work. You can't use both. But just +1 a level 19 gem with a support, a Mastery support, and then there you go, you're pretty good. Other than that, same setup as usual, Deadly Poison, Astral Projection, so you can throw this out at range instead of having to run into melee and hit enemies with Plague Bearer. That should be Astral Projection should be your first support gem on this, and then after that, kind of go with the rest. Then Vine Arrow I barely ever use, I barely ever remember to use. It's just another skill that you could use along with Despair on bosses. You Despair, Vine Arrow, and then do everything else. And Vine Arrow, you poison it, and then it transfers, I think it's 60% of that poison over to the nearby boss. Technically, it also slows. I don't really know that it has much impact or any impact on bosses, but, mainly the thing here is just trying to get it to, add a little bit of extra damage. Then we're using Ghost Dance and Wind Dancer. That's kind of the classic combination. Still pretty much the standard setup here for all of this. One thing that I have done here is I've put Life Leech and Mana Leech support on Wind Dancer along with Poison. This makes it so that if you get hit, you're automatically building up Plague Bearer, which feels kind of nice, and then you're leeching life and mana, which is like never a bad thing. And then, Blind and Maim always are on Wind Dancer, just good for like making sure that when an enemy hits you, they're not able to hit you again. All right, so that's the changes to the skills. Now I'm going to jump into the passive tree, and you can see some red lines here. That is all the stuff that I'm using in the main hand weapon setup, and all the green lines are just for the offhand, and that's how we're able to use Despair, even though it requires 147 int and we only have 109. We're getting all of that int from all of those offhand setups. Like if I switch to offhand here, now 174 between the int from the dagger and the no int from the focus, but that's fine. Some gem levels at least from there, but then also from the passive tree, more than enough int required. And then, spells kind of cost a lot, especially curses, so we get some stuff like conservative casting to help with the mana cost efficiency. I think we're using efficiency, for like life cost reduction in there as well. That kind of helps a bit. Other than that, it's really just about like making the curse last as long as possible. Really, you only curse on bosses. That really is it. There's really never a reason to ever do that other than on bosses. And, a lot of this stuff is the same setup as we were going with before. We've just kind of expanded out to some things like Kite Runner for a bit more move speed. A lot of this other stuff is still pretty much the same as we were running before. We're getting a lot of move speed out of the tree, getting a lot of move speed out of gear, and I am currently at the point where I don't need the 5% res from the intermission pillar, so I'm getting move speed out of that. You can do global defenses if you want, but I do prefer that move speed. One thing that I have added in here is a from nothing with passives in the radius of chaos inoculation can be allocated, and that allows you to take pure chaos, which is a lot of damage, and also tempered mind, which is also a lot of damage. Like if we look at the amount of damage that you get out of these two nodes, it's pretty substantial damage increase, like over 12-15% damage out of those two nodes. Very good. So something you can add in as a Megalomaniac. I have not bothered to do that. Instead, I have fixed my mana issues in maps by just adding in a Sapphire that has recover 2% of mana on kill, and then we're still going for like crit damage bonus and magnitude of ailments and max ES. Getting a lot of ES over 3,500, over 15,000 evasion rating. Actually, more than that with Wind Dancer stacked up. I think it's more like, no, it is 15,719 evasion rating. So, sitting pretty good, pretty hard to hit. And obviously recovering a lot of energy shield anytime that we are hit, thanks to Ghost Shrouds giving us 1,100 energy shield recovered. It's pretty good. So there are a lot of good bonuses that you can get with a Megalomaniac. We're anointing serrated edges because it's pretty good and pretty cheap. There are definitely some other great bonuses around that you can take. Things like fast acting toxins is good. Wasting can be good. There are a lot of other really strong bonuses around the tree. Cooked is a good one to go after. That's probably the next one that we're going to be pathing toward. Throat Seeker is also pretty good. There's some other move speed available as well, like Blur, that's, kind of nice to get, but like the travel nodes to it are a little bit stinky. And I don't think Blur is something, it's too close to the center of the tree, so I don't think it's something you can anoint or get on a Megalomaniac. All right, so now I'll talk about gear. So obviously we've made those swaps to Poison Burst Arrow to compensate for the fact that we've dropped Sliver Tongue. So we're not getting built-in Fork and Pierce, so we have to have like Fork on the 6-link for Poison Burst Arrow, and that actually works just fine. What I'm doing here is I'm using about a 500 DPS bow. You'll notice that this has no attack speed, so it's like quite a lot better than, say, a 500 DPS bow that had like a really good attack speed roll on it. It also has crit chance and mana leech and level of attack skills. Level of attack skills just comes from an essence. This is something that I bought. Somebody had like started to craft this and felt like it was a botch. I bought it from them and essenced it, and then like used Omen of Light and whatever it's called, basically just re-rolled the hybrid prefix until I was like happy with the state of this. And yeah, almost 8.5% crit chance. Like that's pretty good. The level of attack skills is very good. The mana leech is something you can get on gloves or rings though. Like that's pretty replaceable. And then the quiver is something that's just like kind of nice. We have swapped over to a Visceral Quiver. We're getting a lot of crit chance out of this, and plus level of projectile skills, and like increased damage of bow skills, and flat fizz to attacks. The attack speed isn't really necessary, but it's nice. And then again, that unveiled mod of increases and reductions to projectile speed also apply to damage with bows is something that is definitely nice to fish for if you have some Abyss Omens laying around. You want to burn some currency on that. That's a pretty good mod. It applies with some like really nice bonuses around the tree that you wouldn't really think like, oh, that's like super great or whatever. Like different projectile speed bonuses, like things you get from Kite Runner becomes like a super valuable node in addition to giving you a bunch of move speed. So pretty cool to be able to get, what is it, this bonus down here, Feathered Fletching, which is usually like kind of hard to, you know, not hard to path down to, but a lot of points to path down to. Now you can just get that as a quiver node. Feels pretty good. Then most of the rest of the gear upgrades have just been in the form of like getting more evasion and energy shield and resistances and stuff. You know, nice Falconer's jacket with a lot of stats on it. Gloves with, I think these are the same gloves and helm that we had in the previous run, previous video, but like these boots with like life and deflection as evasion rating, bunch of stats on them, some chaos res. This is definitely the same amulet that I crafted before the last video, which, you know, it's a nice amulet. What can you say? One of the bigger budget upgrades that we've made is just to the Rizlatha's Coil, getting one that has 40% more max physical attack damage and then a very low, less minimum physical attack damage roll on it. I think this only cost like 1 or 2 divines, and then I sold the other belt that was like close in stats, but not nearly as good for like half as much. So, you know, kind of recovered a lot of the cost, but getting really good rolls on a Rizlatha's Coil is huge. The difference between a well-rolled and a bad Rizlatha's Coil is massive. Like if we just look at the average roll on a Rizlatha's Coil, yeah, you know, like 4% less damage if this just has like average rolls. Like that's a pretty big deal. If you wanted to go for corruption, you know, that could definitely be a thing you could go after as well. Like if you could get like a 43%, even if it's like 30% less, like that could be another couple percent damage that you could go for as well. Although these tend to be quite a lot less efficient currency wise. All right, so that's mostly it in terms of what we've done with the build. One thing that we have gotten asked about a fair bit is Constricting Command. So this is a unique helmet that's become pretty popular recently. It's very strong. I do have one. I played around with using it for a little bit. Ultimately, I had to lose so much energy shield and like stat budget in order to wear this. Thankfully, I would think I was able to like socket in a fire res rune and still say like res capped and stuff. But like, you know, yeah, you lose a lot of stat budget in order to get this, or defensive budget in order to wear this. Like Subterfuge Mask is like totally worthless. So you can drop this. I guess that frees up a couple of points. But ultimately, I didn't love it. But if you are wanting to fix mana, this is a really great way to do so because you can run Defy support on all of your attack skills, and it will make it so that the damage is lucky, and it will make it so that it is usable even if you're low on mana. You will have to use Life Tap on Despair since you can't, you know, it's not an attack. But what you can do then is anoint some of these skills over here, like basically this skill, Frantic Fighter. I don't really think for a poison build it's worth it to come all the way over here to these surrounded nodes that give like attack speed, which really isn't that valuable. You can see 1% damage increase. It's just not that big of a deal. 2.5% max life, not that huge. But what you can do is you can anoint Frantic Fighter along with that, and that is a massive damage increase, like 20%. And then try and find like a Megalomaniac that has Tactical Retreat on it, and that'll give you 10% move speed. That is something I looked into. Probably the most cost-effective method to do that, at least for now. But ultimately, I just kind of liked the comfort and like defensive safety that you get out of just running like a regular energy shield helmet, at least for the time being. That's been working with the way that we have the build set up for now. But that's definitely something you could consider doing, and it's a great way to fix mana, right? Then you don't have to have leech, you don't have to have any sort of like mana on kill jewels, you don't ever have to think about mana at all. So like that aspect of it is very nice. Something you could definitely consider. So that's Poison Pathfinder. It's so good, it's so smooth and quick. It's like a perfect build. It's just on the right side of the line of being unethical without requiring mirror tier gear or 100 keybinds or, doing anything that makes you feel like it's definitely gonna get nerfed in the coming league. This feels like a build that you can really dig in on for the rest of this league, and then it'll still be totally playable next league, if not even better. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord and become part of our community. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us so we can keep making more PoE content, become a channel member, or come boost the Discord. Thanks for watching. Bye.